Hi, my name is Claire, and I will be going through my infographic on fibromyalgia syndrome. I chose this topic because I want to work on a topic of my own personal interest and because I want to learn more about the medical condition my friend is diagnosed with. Part 1, Visual Potential. Visual potential refers to the potential of information to be communicated in graphic and visual form. Different types of information have different visual potential. However, not all information can be represented through visual form. There are five typical characteristics of visual potential: time, location, number, relationship, and appearance display. The visual potential of appearance is in conveying how something appears by using imagery. I chose to display the symptoms of fibromyalgia by using icon figures that were representative of muscle fatigue, anxiety, sleep problems, memory issues, and irritated bowels. I chose to use human icons because people are the ones being affected by the syndrome. I used easy to understand icons that related to the meaning of each of my symptoms. The visual potential of relationships is displayed by grouping and highlighting connections that visual elements have towards each other. For my relationship display, I chose to answer the question of what causes fibromyalgia. I used dotted lines that tied the connection between each cause to a different portion of the human body that was related to the cause. An example of this was by pointing out that the central nervous system played a factor in causing fibromyalgia. The information is linked to the figure's head, which included a brain icon to further tie in the connection. Time has visual potential by representing the flow or cycle of time through the position of visual elements on the page. In my display, I exploited the visual potential of time by using a circle to indicate the cycle of time. This circle has different colored sections with labels for each of those sections that indicate the information of a weekly routine of physical therapy. There is an outer line that follows the shape of the circle with an arrowhead in order to indicate that this entire process repeats for the next 4 months. The important idea here was to convey that the process of physical therapy was a cycle of repeated patterns and practices from a start to finish. The visual potential of numbers refers to the translation of numerical values into marks on a page using different representative visual elements. I exploited the visual potential of numbers related to my topic by labeling the value of an individual figure icon and representing it in a 10 by 10 grid filled with those figures. This strategy helps in conveying that there is a large sum of fibromyalgia diagnosis in the world. I utilized a ratio of 8 to 2 female and male figure icons in order to display the information that 80% of the people who are diagnosed are women. Through my number display, I aimed at letting my viewers know that there were many diagnoses of fibromyalgia and that most of these diagnoses were found in women. The visual potential of location refers to the relative position of things or places in consideration of its position on the page. For my display, I created a global map of the world with colored sections that indicated the areas where there is a higher prevalence percentage of fibromyalgia. Unfortunately, there is no general consensus on the prevalence percentage of fibromyalgia for every country, and I placed this piece of information next to my map display. Part 2, Encoding. Encoding refers to translating information and data into visual attributes. Some encoding strategies include using color and shape to distinguish categories, size and contrast to indicate level of importance in visual information, and positioning of visual elements to suggest a hierarchy. In my numbers display, I used sizing and color strategies to indicate that each figure were worth of the same numerical value of fibromyalgia diagnosis, while I used an eye-catching yellow color as my accent to highlight female icon figures to indicate their overwhelming presence in the amount of people who are diagnosed with fibromyalgia, thereby conveying the information that more women than men are afflicted with this medical disease. For my relationship display, I use line treatments and shapes to indicate the direction of the relationship. The nodes attached at the end of the dashed lines serve to indicate the connection of the causes of fibromyalgia to the occurrence on the areas of the body. This was done to paint a clear image on how the information is associated to each visual elements presented within the human body figure. In my time display, I use a combination of line treatment, position, and color to convey the information that the process of physical therapy for fibromyalgia patient is a cycle. The line treatments are indicative of the connection each date has with each section of the cycle, with colors showing two main groupings. These line treatments are dotted and brightly colored, associating with the figure of a woman undergoing physical therapy within the cycle. Each line is positioned in such a way that they are grouped together by the different colors of each section. Evidently, the darker green is associated with the week, while the lighter green is used are representative of the weekends. The dark green shows that during each week, the patient must undergo 20 to 30 minutes of daily exercise, whereas the lighter green shows that there is no need for the patient to undergo physical therapy. Our darker infilled line is placed outside the circular figure to wrap around the circular edge in order to show a stronger association with the process of physical therapy being a cycle. Finally, in my part 3, color. The three main colors from the color model are the light and dark green, yellow, and red. These colors form an analogous palette colors from a narrow wedge of the color wheel. I felt as though this was an appropriate color set to use throughout my infographic, as the tone fit the general theme of my infographic. We can see that the yellow is mainly used to highlight important key information throughout the display and is used quite frequently. The red is mostly seen used to highlight the title and sectional titles of information. The dark green is used to provide a contrast to draw the viewer's attention on important pieces of information. In my infographic, I followed the gradient background of my color model by picking the gradation and using them as alternative background colors. This was done because I wanted to adhere to my visual language model, which used alternating background colors of similar shades but with different hues. I utilized the red as a highlight color for my title section in order to draw attention to the topic of my infographic and also to emulate my color model. However, this color was also used throughout different locations of my display because the color red is often associated with pain and danger, which is suitable for my topic at hand. In order to adhere to my color model, I used this color sparsely and only emphasized key areas. Throughout various displays, I used the color yellow as an accent to accentuate words or icon figures as important pieces of information that is crucial to understanding what the display is trying to convey. In my location display, I use mainly colors to show the categorical values of the prevalence percentage of fibromyalgia. I used a bright shade of red to stand out against the background color. While red was mostly used as a color for titles, I chose to use this color because it stood out the most against my background color. It was also chosen to be used because of its association with the meanings of danger. Through this meaning, it would indicate to the users that the areas filled in with the color red showed the highest prevalence percentage of fibromyalgia syndrome. The next brightest hue I used was yellow. This was associated with the next highest prevalence percentage. Finally, the light shade of green I used indicated that those countries held the lowest prevalence percentage of fibromyalgia. I used the red, yellow, and green in combination and formatted it much like stoplights, where green was in the safe zone, yellow was quickly approaching high prevalence percentage, and red as having the highest prevalence percentage. For my relationship display, I use mainly a combination of the various shades of green with yellow accents to highlight key areas of importance. The yellow was used as the background color for the cause of fibromyalgia, separating it from the khaki green background that the rest of my visual elements laid on. Certain words were highlighted using this color in order to draw the viewer's attention to the importance of those words and how it relates to the understanding of the cause of fibromyalgia syndrome. I used a lighter shade of green as a text block on the left in order to create a visual contrast. By doing so, it elevates the readability of the text and notifies the viewers of the importance contained within this graphic element without drawing too much attention away from the yellow accents in the display. Red was used as an outline color for the circular nodes at the end of the dotted lines in order to convey a message of pain, as many of the underlying causes of fibromyalgia are related to prior instances of damage. One key difference that my viewers may note from my infographic is that I included the usage of white quite frequently throughout my display. Although my color model uses very little white, I decided on using this fill color because it helps stand out against the dark green backgrounds and against the various model displays I have throughout the infographic. I have tried using the yellow color found within my model, but I saw that it was visually ineffective in comparison to the white fill color. I repeated the same figure and same color scheme throughout my infographic in order to create a sense of unity within my display. My typography model follows three main font styles. One of them is used virtually throughout the entire infographic as titles, labels, and body paragraph text. The second font type used has only been used once throughout the infographic, found mainly in the title in the form of a single word. The final font type used appears mainly within the text or conversational bubbles that appear occasionally throughout the infographic. The best font that I could find for the style that is repeatedly used throughout the infographic is Helvetica Neue. I use this font for the entirety of my displays, including precision labels, which are the precise values given by our visual element, identity labels, which specify what a graphical element presents, and annotations, which are blocks of text that provide additional information that is not otherwise conveyed through visual elements. The font style that is used once within the typography model is Snell Roundhand. Unfortunately for my infographic, I did not use this font type, as it was unnecessary for me to use within my title section. This font was only used on the word "the" of the title, Save the Whales, in my typography model. In addition, I found that the style of this font did not match with the overall theme of my topic at hand, as it presents a serious topic in a manner that is both educational and informative. Both fonts are sans serif with horizontal endings. The last font is mainly used within the typography model to fill in personalities of each whale figure provided repeatedly throughout the infographic. It provides a contrasting lightheartedness from the topic of endangered whale species and as appropriate to the text bubble. It utilizes a font that resembles very much like a scribble. The best matching font that I found is displayed on this slide. It follows the same sans serif with horizontal ending style and has a similar resemblance to a scribble of words. A prominent association strategy that I used are leader lines. I followed this strategy most noticeably in my relationship display, where I created connections of each cause through the use of dotted linear lines. Another association strategy used is proximity. My numbers display emulates this, as the statistical values are all in close proximity to the graphical elements of this model. My visual language model utilizes a combination of detailed and simplified graphic elements throughout the infographic. There are many simplified silhouettes with no internal detail, with few abstract silhouettes with some internal detail, and a couple of realistic graphic elements of high detail. Some of the noticeable and key components of what make this infographic are the types of line and shapes it uses. It primarily uses a dotted horizontal line and different colored backgrounds as divider lines. It uses either a filled-in object with no outline or an outline object with no fill. The shapes used are mostly circular and rounded in figure, with a few rectangular boxes used for annotations and labels. There is the use of arrows at the bottom of the infographic, which leads to the indication of a call to action. I emulated my visual model by replicating the use of circular and rounded shapes to highlight icon figures within my appearance display. I also utilized rectangular boxes for labels, indicating the visual information of the icons above. In my time display, I utilize the same line treatment of dotted horizontal lines in order to create connections between each visual element. A deviation in this display might be that I use an outline on a filled icon, but I found that without this particular outline on the yellow figures representing physical therapy, it would have been difficult to understand the visual potential or information it presented. The filled color was used in order to stand out against the dark background and for readability. Finally, throughout my entire infographic display, I included an alternating use of colored backgrounds as divider lines. Within each of these sections, I also included alternating levels of detail in my graphical elements through the detailed work done on my repeated use of this human female figure. Visual hierarchy refers to variation in visual prominence of elements in a display. Within my display, I use a combination of color, sizing, and repetition to create varying levels of contrast that guides attention, communicate levels of importance, and create visual interest within my infographic. The alternating use of background colors provide interest in the displays and the reason for their separation, while the use of accent colors draw attention to the information displayed. The various sizing of text and graphical elements also help to convey levels of importance, while repetition throughout the infographic creates a sense of unity. My infographic is similar to my visual language model in Unity, as I repeatedly use the same human female figure throughout my model. This includes the same use of color scheme for this particular icon and the accompanying text bubble. Variety is created through the other graphical displays, ranging from different levels of realism in the usage of icons. My layout model follows a strict vertical layout from top to bottom, with each major section broadly separated by the usage of alternating background colors. It follows a left-to-right symmetry with nested sections within the major sections. I use similar elements of layout following the same patterns of alternating background colors to separate my major sections before placing my visual displays in the same order as my layout model's nested sections. Alignment refers to arranging text and graphic elements so that they line up. I achieve this alignment method by grouping displays in a similar manner as my visual language model does. I'd adhere to my similar margin elements with some graphical elements playing with the boundaries of the borders. Lastly, I wanted to thank my professor and my TA for their helpful commentaries, and as well to the rest of my classmates who provided insightful critiques that allowed me to create my final infographic.